Hey everyone. So I have a little bit of background you don't know anything about, is actually some law stuff. It's all shades of gray, right? Well, as time went along, it turns out I like playing with other shades of gray. So let's talk about sunglasses and why there's no just gray lenses. We hear this all the time, right? You want gray or brown, or is it just gray? There's like 50 shades of gray, literally. So let's talk about at least a few of those and have some fun while we're at it. So I said 50. I have, what, 9? 8? I can't count today. You guys count it for me. 8. Yeah, I have 8 shades of gray sitting right here. Now, while technically one of these is blue, I think we can all agree that it's still just another shade of gray that's a little bit more on the cool side of the spectrum. Speaking of this guy here, this is one of my own. This is kind of my favorite gray, at least I've got in my prescription. Very neutral, very soft, adds a little bit of contrast pop, and that blue mirror tunes that wavelength a little bit. Now, I've done another video on mirrors. I'll link that in a little card up here and down in the comments section, but mirrors can really be used to fine-tune the exact wavelength and really change any of these grays into something a little bit more different. This is kind of your standard gray with a little bit of a silver flash mirror, so a little bit darker than some of the others. Just very neutral, very easy to work with. You can see it turns all of the different shades of gray just a very muddy color. And that's kind of your basic gray. This is more what you come into when you hear somebody say, I want a gray lens. That's usually what you get, something along those lines. Very close to a neutral gray, maybe just a tinge of green to it, but not much. This next one is a little bit more in the green family. So this is you'll hear some people call this a real green or a G35. This one's not really what I call a G15, which is just a gray with 15% of that gray being green. 35 would be 35% being green. There you go. A little bit more fun for you. But you can see this one adds, it shifts all the colors a little bit, so you lose that very nice neutral effect that grays tend to have in darkening across the entire spectrum. So this one still in the gray family, but it's a stretch. What's really cool with these, they give you a nice pop against greens and reds. So yeah, anytime you want those reds to shine, that's it. Now this is kind of the epitome of as neutral as it gets a gray. This is the Vuarnet Pure Gray. You can see it's got still a little bit of that green tinge to it, and you'll see that goes away entirely in their polarized version of the gray. But see, nowhere near as green as that last lens. I'm messing with my camera here now, but you can see it darkens everything pretty neutrally, and the reason I have this blue flash over here is so you can see the effect on blue spectrum light and what that does. Now onto the gray polar. You can see this one is very close to that first lens I showed. Still a little bit on the blue side, not quite as much as you're going to see in the blue polar, but it does still have a little bit of that cooler spectrum light. This one isn't quite as dark as the pure gray. I don't know if you noticed that. Now that's something that's kind of interesting to me, because a lot of people think polarization is the end-all, be-all. But when it comes to actual comfort of glasses, a lot of times polarized is not the key that does it. But that's another story for another day. On to the blue polar guy here. You can see pretty dramatically this does give a nice cool shift, but you'll see why I say this is still in the gray family, and that's because it is still overall color neutral at least as much as that gray-green lens I showed just a moment ago. This one is kind of fun in that it's really good for out on the water because it does have that polarized component, and that's where polarization makes the most difference. Now, on to something a little bit different. So this is still a gray. Again, they're all gray, but this one has just a little bit of a magenta red shift to it. Now, sometimes that's desired. Sometimes you get this in lower quality production. Tints overheated, all kinds of other issues can cause it. This one's actually on purpose, but you can see it gives just a little bit of a magenta shift to things. And there you go. That knocks the green out, as you can see on that gray-green lens, So that's what this lens does. It kind of dulls and mutes those overpowering greens. Really great for situations where you're in maybe say a forest or a big open meadow where there's just so much green everywhere. You need to dial that color back just a little bit. That one's a little bit harder to find because, as I mentioned, it's often associated with a poor batch of gray lenses. So that's one to watch out for. Now this one is kind of my favorite of the standard grays without any sort of tuning in the mirrors, and that is just the more basic smoky gray. This one is just ever so slightly into the blue spectrum, nowhere near what the blue polar is, but you can see it cools things just a little bit, and the camera's doing weird things here because of that AR coating. I promise you it doesn't look that purple in person. Let's see. Let's trick it. There we go. So that's why I call this kind of just a smoky gray. You have a very nice neutral gray with just a little bit of a cool spectrum shift. Just barely knocks the edge off of those bright reds and still keeps everything nice and dark and nice and neutral. And now back to the difference here. So what you get with this guy, that blue mirror does warm the gray up quite a bit by blocking more of the blue light from passing through the lens. And you'll see, there you go. On this one's a very noticeable warm shift. Now the camera's not loving it because that one actually has my prescription in it, but you get the idea. I had to play with that one, right? Because it's my new pair, so that was a must. It just had to come into the mix for the fun of it. Now, this video, we're not going to get into the muss and fuss of mirrors and polarization as much. I'll save that for another day. So if all that's something you're interested in learning more about, definitely subscribe, ring that bell below, all the fun stuff so you can stay up to date on the latest and see all sorts of cool new sunglasses on top of the little bit of lens tech here and there. I try to keep it neutral with a couple a week, but anyways, I'll catch you guys next time. Definitely let me know if this video helped and leave some feedback below so I can keep bringing you guys new cool stuff. Take care, I'll catch you next time.